my name is Dave Reske, CEO of Now Speed Marketing, and welcome to this edition of Marketing in the Now, where we talk about the best ideas of digital marketing. And my guest today is Fernando Gonzalez, a CMO and marketing advisor with a strong background in helping B2B tech companies scale. Fernando, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Glad you joined me today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. We've been talking about revenue-oriented marketing and sales and marketing alignment. But before we begin, I just wanted you to just talk a little bit about your background, your last role, and what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I have extensive experience in marketing, specifically for B2B tech companies. My last role at a company called Frogslayer, we basically provided custom software services for companies in multiple industries, and I was their CMO, so helping the company kind of navigate this complicated industry right now. So the technology is actually going through a pretty rough patch with everything AI. Um, it was a pretty good experience. It's a American company with very high value-added services rather than just the more traditional staffing. And on top of that, I'm also a mentor for Endeavor. Endeavor is a nonprofit organization. It's a worldwide organization that helps entrepreneurs get started and get connected. And once you become an entrepreneur, you also you go through a pretty lengthy selection process, and the same selection helps you kind of build your idea and improve on what you already have. And once you become an Endeavor entrepreneur, then you get access to a pretty amazing network of people from top executives around the world and venture capital and other entrepreneurs. So it's like a support network that helps you get there. So I've been doing mentoring for multiple companies for the last several years. So pretty excited also because I also have an entrepreneurial background. So it's kind of giving back a little bit to the community as well.
That, that sounds really amazing. It sounds like a really good experience to work with some of these budding entrepreneurs. Are you helping them with just marketing strategies or just general business strategies? Kind of you going into basically entrepreneurial consulting or support or mentoring, or is it really focused on marketing?
It's mostly focused on marketing and sales, a lot of marketing and sales alignment. And many times when they also reach out and have these mentoring opportunities, many times they don't have anything yet and they need to set up everything and they need to get things in motion for marketing. So it depends on the stage of the company they're at. It might be just specifically to help them improve their go-to-market or create better marketing and sales alignment, or just set up things and define what to do first and where to invest first for marketing. So it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, that's great. Well, what a great experience, and you're making a real difference with those companies. We've been talking about revenue-oriented marketing, and just for our listeners who may not be familiar with the term, what is revenue-oriented marketing? How's that different than maybe traditional digital marketing or other types of marketing?
That's a great question, and I think there's not a big difference in the activities and the strategy. The main difference to me lies on how you understand marketing and what are the main goals marketing should have. And that kind of aligns everything behind that. So revenue-oriented marketing is basically making sure that everything you do, every cent you invest in marketing, it's actually tied to generating revenue, right? We marketers are pretty good at spending money, and we always want more money, and we get more money, and it's never enough. And what I've seen over the years is that we tend to accumulate things, accumulate activities, because that's like you have to be everywhere, right? That mantra that's said all the time. And sometimes we start to focus on activities rather than what those activities are supposed to do for the company. And that's where I think this different mindset of revenue-oriented marketing kicks in is you need to make sure that every cent you're spending and every activity you're doing and the time you are dedicating to different tactics, activities, and strategies, they all tie to a specific revenue goal that the company has.
So how do you do that? How do you kind of track or align your marketing spend with your revenue?
Correct. And that's probably the key question here, because it's pretty hard when you have activities in marketing that probably are pretty hard to measure, or it's hard to measure the direct impact. Let's say you write a blog post, right? How do you know how much that blog post contributed to the overall strategy and the revenue generation for the company? And I think that what helps bridge that gap is making sure that everyone on the marketing team and on the marketing organization understands that we're not looking for um, traditional KPIs. We're not looking for vanity metrics. We're looking for activities that we know will have an impact. Um, so at the end of the day, what helps kind of direct the team in that direction or adopt that mindset is making sure that they all understand that as a marketing organization, our main function, our main objective is to generate revenue. Then there are many other activities that we will be doing that probably are harder to measure. But at the end of the day, if everyone on the team understands that the final goal is to bring money to the company, to generate opportunities, and not just opportunities, but actual clients and revenue, that's where things start to get easier in order to do that measuring and to get there.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Maybe we could use the example of the blog post because we do a lot of content marketing and SEO in my agency, and some clients, if they don't focus on generating revenue or focus on metrics that really matter, they're just looking for like vanity metrics, as you called it.
Correct.
It feels like it would be a great idea to have like a poster with a circle and a slash through it with the words around vanity metrics as a core thing because it's easier for marketers to get focused on things like keyword visibility or organic website traffic or how many website visitors you've got without really tying that to, well, really how many leads did you get out of that activity? How many qualified leads and how much revenue did you get? Because you can measure all that, right? You can measure all
Correct.
that. But if you get hung up on keyword visibility, then you're gonna focus a blog post on some esoteric word that doesn't relate to the pipeline, and you're just gonna get some vanity metric that you feel good about that doesn't really make any difference. Is that kind of the kind of behavior you're trying to avoid?
Absolutely. And I think, don't get me wrong, you need to measure everything, right? Otherwise, it will be like flying blind. Um, and we all love to see those metrics going up, right? It's like, oh, I got more clicks, I got more visits to my site, and people are spending more time reading my content. But at the end of the day, if that doesn't translate into actual sales, then it's all worthless, right? I mean, we're spending a ton of money, we're spending a ton of time in activities that at the end of the day will not make the company grow. Um, so here's the real the real game changer to me aspect is that we used to focus on either last click attribution or first click attribution or somewhere in between. I think that what's working now for most companies that are focused on revenue marketing, sorry, revenue marketing is understanding how each one of those activities influence the actual last click or the actual last step of the process. If you start measuring those activities not as the activity that will get the reward for being the only activity that made that happen, that made that new client or that prospect become a client, then you kind of understand the impact of each one of those activities throughout the funnel, and you then know where to spend more money, where to put more effort to make sure that you get a repeatable process there.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. In my experience, sometimes the activities that turn into revenue are harder to get results on, right? So you might let's you go back to that blog example. So you might not be able to write one blog and get a prospect out of that that's going to buy something, right? You might have
Correct.
to have a strategy where you're writing dozens and dozens of core articles that are going deep into a particular subject to get noticed as a content authority so that you get attract the right kind of people so that you get the right kind of leads, right? So it kind of it takes a long time. So how do you kind of deal with situation where you're trying to convince management that a long-term deeper investment is going to pay off in bigger results when we're not seeing those vanity metrics that maybe they were used to in the old days, and you're kind of switching them to a new mindset of like we're not going to see these same kind of metrics. We're going to measure different kind of metrics, and it's going to take a longer time to have those pay off.
Absolutely. That's probably the toughest conversation to have, but there's one simple way to attack that, and it's actually showing leadership what has been happening in the past, right? Usually that's just a sign that something is not working, right? Because I mean, they need more leads. No one has enough leads, right? I've never heard someone say, "No, I'm okay. I just don't give me more leads. I can deal with what I already have." I think that's the first sign is that if they're engaging with me or if I get hired to a new company, that's usually because they're not doing well, right? So that is kind of the first conversation you need to have. It's like, look, what you were doing, it's not working, right? Otherwise, you will be calling me or you will be thinking about hiring an agency or hiring a new CMO or CGO or whatever the role might be. So that's step number one. And then step number two, and I think this is the toughest part is getting their buy-in on the long-term strategy because marketing is not a magic wand. We would love it to be like a magic wand that you get there, you cast your spell, and all of a sudden you start getting leads, right? There's education that needs to happen to the audience. There are campaigns that you need to test and learn out of those campaigns to make sure that you're getting to the right people with the right message and at the right time. Usually, no one knows that kind of right out of the gate. And there's a process of understanding what each of those activities that you were doing were doing or were not doing for you. And it'll take time. So I think that if if leadership at a company, let's say either the owner or CEO or whoever you're talking to, if they don't understand that this is a long-term game, that's probably not the place you want to be. And I mean, it's easy to say when you're not in the line, when you're not applying to a specific job or trying to get that client for you. But I think that companies that do not understand that marketing is a long-term game, they probably shouldn't be investing a lot in marketing and keep doing what they were doing until they got there, right?
Yeah. That's a really good point. I think what you're saying is that just because you've got revenue-oriented marketing doesn't mean you're going to invest something today and it's always going to pay results tomorrow. Give you an
Correct.
example. We just got a lead yesterday on our website, and it's from someone who's been on our mailing list for 3 years.
Wow.
He's been reading our content, and we have HubSpot, and so we're tracking this, and so we can see he's opening the content every month, not every month, but he's kind of engaging with our content. He's been involved for 3 years, and now he just came up and he wants to have a sales conversation. So that's that's kind of an example of this long-term view. He's been with he hasn't been in a place where he's needed anything or been interested in talking to us for years, yet he's there. So if we had cut him off after 3 months, hey, we did 3 email blasts to him, he didn't respond, he's done. Like it's kind of a missed opportunity. How do you balance that long-term thinking with the short-term thinking in a revenue marketing kind of an approach?
That's a great question. I think that's where these two types of speeds, what I would like to call those speeds, need to kind of play together. So there are activities, or there's a part of the strategy that you are doing for the short-term goals. It's like more kind of the outbound part of things, more aggressive ads and stuff that um, you need to get some results because we actually need to eat every single day, right? We can't wait a year to eat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that kind of second speed, that is kind of the long-term game. And usually the long-term game is the one that gives you better results because you have better positioning, you get your SEO benefits, and those are, we all know those are cheaper, those are better, those are earned rather than playing with ads that, it's you spend money today and you don't spend money tomorrow and you're gone, right? Um, so I think that you need to balance those two speeds and make sure that you're dedicating enough attention and enough resources to the low speed one because we tend to focus on the high speed, on the quick result part of the equation, and kind of forget the other one. Um, and to your question is how do you balance that? I think that if you can prove successful in the short term activities, then you get that trust from managers to say, okay, I know what you're doing. I know that you know what you're doing, so we'll give you some more leeway to start working on the long-term strategy.
Yeah. So you can't just go to management and say, hey, we're going to do this long-term strategy. Nothing's going to happen for a year. But in a year, everything's going to be great. They're going to be like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. So you have to show results in the short term and the long term.
And the long term.
Marketing is always it's often a game of and, isn't it? It's like it's
Uh,
not often one thing that's in there. Talk to me about how you think about like campaign planning. So if you're in a revenue oriented strategies and how these things work together. So you may be doing content marketing for SEO, you may be doing advertising, you got an email campaign going on, you might have events going on, you've got PR happening. How do these things all how do you kind of think about integrating all these things together in a revenue oriented approach? Are you tracking each one individually and assigning value to each one of those based on how many leads or how much revenue they're generating? Or do you kind of look at them as a whole, as a portfolio and how they work together? Because you don't always know how they work together, right?
correct.
So do you kind of you value them together? And as long as you're engaging in exactly the ICP with the right message that's focused on the right, the right objective, it's okay. Yeah, kind of how do you think about that portfolio?
And I think again that's as you said, that's an and game because you cannot have one or the other. You cannot look at everything as a whole, only everything as a whole, or you cannot look at everything in isolation. You need to kind of have both ways, and you need to be able to look at the 10,000 feet vision and at the same time be very granular and to understand what's happening. So funny, not so funny at the time, but funny story now. When I was working for one company, we were a software development company out of Latin America selling to the US. And we had offices in 4 different countries in Latin America. So just by having our workforce there, we started getting some traction and referrals and people trying to buy from us what to us wasn't our traditional market.
Hmm.
And we said, hey, this is great. I mean, let's also focus on Latin America because we're seeing some good traction. We're seeing some good business. Um, so we kind of duplicated all of our campaigns. We started targeting Latin America, and all of a sudden, our pipeline was huge. So we were seeing, I mean, we were sending emails and getting responses. We were calling people and they were answering our phones. We were getting meetings and everything. We had a record level of MQLs and QLs and opportunities. At the same time, we realized later that the average deal size was a lot lower, and the time to close went like crazy high from our average of 6 months to maybe a year or a year and a half. But we made the mistake of looking at all of that as a combined strategy. So we were looking at the US and Latin America as just a combined dashboard. And by the time we realized we were paying more attention to Latin America than the US, and we had a dip in I mean, our pipeline shrunk dramatically in the US. And those were the clients we needed to work with and we wanted to work with. Um, so just to illustrate that, you need to be able to see the whole thing, the whole strategy, but at the same time be very granular and say, hey, this is happening. This might be compensating for something that it's not working, and this one is working, and so they're balancing in the big picture. But at the same time, you need to understand what's happening with each one of those activities and each one of those campaigns. Um, so to your question, I think that you need my marketing dream is to have a dashboard where you can see everything together at the same time, then just double click on whatever campaign or whatever tool or whatever metric you want to look at and then understand that granularly how that's been behaving, and not just a picture, not just one frame, but you need to look at the entire picture to see if there are trends that you need to look at.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's a powerful example of understanding it by market, by campaign, by maybe message. You've got to be able to understand what's happening and how all of that is it working or not working, and then how does it tie back to revenue? Because the example you gave, like, were you getting marketing response, but it's not turning into revenue at the same rate, it's not as effective a spend. Talk to me about in the final few minutes we've got left. Talk to me about sales and marketing alignment, because it strikes me that if you've got to have a revenue oriented approach, you've got to have a great connection with the CRO or the sales team and the sales leaders. How do you kind of make that connection powerful? And what are some of the obstacles you've seen in kind of making sales and marketing alignment work?
And that's probably the hardest part to uh, the hardest goal to achieve when company culture is different to that alignment. So when the company understands marketing and sales as two separate um, areas, two separate organizations that tend to fight each other instead of collaborate. That's where I've seen companies fail, unfortunately. What's proven successful in my experience is if leadership understands that marketing and sales should act and work as a combined entity, that's when things start to get better. Um, just by saying it won't happen. You need to actually make it happen, and you need to work hard because um, what happens most of the times is that the CMO will fight for um, their own vanity metrics like MQLs and SQLs and the awareness campaigns or whatever they're trying to show. And sales teams will focus on what's good for them. And for them, that's the low-hanging fruit. Those are the leads that are ready to convert. And what I think happens many times is that the compensation structure is what drives people in the wrong direction.
Mm,
One key example will be if you compensate your um, salespeople higher if they source their own leads.
mm,
Right? So they will be focusing on working their own leads and their own stuff and not paying attention to whatever marketing is doing. Um, then there's this disconnect where things, leads tend to fall through the cracks. So I think that compensation for the entire organization, both marketing and sales, need to be aligned. They all need to be rewarded by revenue generated by those activities. Um, and the, Going back to probably the first part of the conversation is, how do you reward the content writer that wrote a blog, right? Um, so to me, the best way to do that is to compensate people in bonuses at the end of the year based on company revenue and marketing and sales generated revenue. And that's probably the first big step that you need to take to make sure that everything else kind of follows behind.
Mm, good point. So you're going to have like the core incentives tied to that revenue if you're going to, and if you're that's going to be your ultimate goal rather than
Right.
pitting the organizations against each other with competing goals, especially that I could definitely see how that could be a huge problem, right? And
Absolutely.
so you kind of want the sales team to be following up on the leads so that marketing can be rewarded for its contribution, right? But if they're incented not to do that and get their own leads, yeah, that could be a huge problem, right?
Absolutely.
Oh man, yeah. So, it's so funny you design all these systems and then we human beings get in the way with our emotions and competition and envy and greed and jealousy and
Absolutely.
can blow it up.
There's a great book on kind of understanding compensation that it's called Prime to Perform. And there are many examples of how rewards can go really wrong really fast, and for companies, and not just for companies, for individuals overall. So definitely will recommend reading that one.
Yeah. Well, Fernando, this has been a great conversation about revenue-oriented marketing. Thank you for so much for sharing some insights. If people want to get a hold of you and learn more about you or how you might be able to help them or anything like that, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, uh, first of all, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can reach out to me through LinkedIn, and hopefully, I love to learn about what other people are doing in posting. And I'm just about to launch my own agency. So Structured Rebellion. Hopefully, in the next couple of months, will be live. We'll be focusing on B2B tech companies and how to help them grow through revenue and sales. So, and then revenue marketing. So there you'll be able to see my website pretty soon, hopefully.
That's awesome. Well, we'll link to that in this episode, and hopefully this will help, and you'll have some great conversations with people leading to hopefully your own revenue and with your own revenue already marketing. That's awesome.
Absolutely, and appreciate the space.
Yes. Well, Fernando, thank you again for taking the time to talk to us. Really
It's
appreciate
been a
it.
pleasure.